Good morning, friends. Thanks for being here this morning with Journey Home Meditation for the Morning Sit. I'm Michael. I'm going to be here today as we share some contemplations and a little bit of shared breathing and get into some meditation this morning. And I'm happy to be here. So this morning, as I was waking up, I was kind of in this place between a really convincing dream world and coming into this awakening. I was torn in my thoughts between, do I want to go back into that dream world or do I want to wake up into this world? And it was actually a tough decision. I don't know if you've ever had that experience of really being in a place where you are conscious of the levels of consciousness. And sometimes our dreams can really be so convincing and enrapturing, right? You become enraptured by the dream life, and that it's hard to step out of that. And in this particular dream life, this morning, I don't have a full recollection of what exactly it was. And that's always the most frustrating thing, is like, I know that there's something here that is drawing me in. And there's something here that I'm familiar with. And there's something here that I want to return to or become closer to. But I don't know what it is. I don't remember. You start to wake up and all of a sudden that entire, the intricacies, the subtleties start to go away, but the feeling remains. The feeling is still there that you are a part of this world, this other thing. And so then I sat up and I decided, well, I think I have to actually get up. I could see that the sun was starting to come up a little bit. This color of sky was changing. And so I sat up and I started making that transition, that waking moments. And it struck me that, one, the similarities between that dream world and this world are very similar in my mental experience. I was so fully present with what was happening in the dream world when I first awoke, that it felt deeply ingrained in me. There was even a sadness or forlornness about leaving that dream this morning. And this has happened to me many times through my life. And in fact, there were periods in my life where I could sleep pretty much nonstop for 2 or 3 days because of the richness of that dream world. And I've talked to other people who've experienced this as well. And it struck me that this is very similar in feeling to what it feels to be rootless, or like not to be rootless, but to be unaware of our roots. For me to be unaware of who my grandparents really were, or have no experience with their parents or their parents, and so on and so on. This lineage going back, my mother's mother, and so on and so on. But to have knowledge that those lives existed and are present inside of me, and that the behaviors, the playing out of the drama of their life is playing out in me as well. Um, and this is true on like a cellular level, as well as true in the lineage of behaviors and the cause and effect of our lives on one another moving downward. And so then it's true on my effect on my children, but it's not just our children that we affect. In this way, it's one another. We are right now participating in relationships that will the outcome of those relationships will be seen in generations to come. Um, Children who are not yet born will be affected by the way that we behave towards one another today. And the more we can start to relate to that as a reality, at least a level of reality, um, but in the phenomenal world, right? In this world, the more we can relate to that as a truth, I believe the more conscious we will be in the moment of who we are and the effect that we have in this world. And to do that, I think at the same time, the gift of that level of consciousness comes an awareness that I am deeply affected by this world. And I am deeply affected by those who came before me and their behaviors and the way, for instance, my mother was became pregnant first at a very young age 14. And this was probably in relation to a relationship that she had with her mother and father. There was probably something in that relationship in the home she grew up in that led her into this life where this occurred. And that was influenced by the relationship her mother and father had with one another, and as well as the relationship they had with their parents. And this is all to say that this isn't about blame. And this is where we get stuck in this cultural context, is we look for the thing to blame for the way that I am. Well, that comes embedded with this notion that the way that I am is bad. This is like the original sin notion that is, I believe, such a monumental failure in understanding lineage. Um, that we've actually created an entire world of uh, fearful and self-loathing people. We have a tendency to think that we are just innately messed up, and then we look for people to blame. But if we can step away from that and just see that it's cause and effect and cause and effect, and there's not necessarily any benefit in judging that, but just witnessing it, witnessing who I really am and who I am made up of. Because we want to sometimes believe that we are some sort of a rugged individualist, cowboy culture pioneer of a human, that I'm not affected by anything that happened to me. I'm my own person and I make my own way. Okay, sure. But the truth is, we are all products of our experiences, which means that we are then experiencing things that are products of the experiences of those who came before. And it's funny how waking from a dream that you are familiar with but can't remember can translate into this line of thought, but that's just the way my brain works. I don't know. So I started going down that pathway, that line of thought, and I began to recall hearing Brother Phap who is the abbot of the upper hamlet of Plum Village Monastery in France, which is Plum Village is the monastery founded and um, by Thich Nhat Hanh, and Thich Nhat Hanh is a teacher of mine. Brother Phap is a teacher of mine. And I remember listening once to Brother Phap talking about uh, being born into a Vietnamese family with strong ties to Vietnamese culture, specific Vietnamese culture. Every morning before he left the house for school or whatever it was, his parents would have him light an incense on the family altar to the ancestors. And he never understood why when he was a kid. He's just, okay, I'll do it, fine, but I don't understand why. And eventually, at some point, because he didn't understand it, he lost interest in doing it because he didn't have a deep internalization of what he was doing. He lost interest. I don't know if this sounds familiar to anybody, but this is how some traditions end up disappearing in just one generation. But he then learned what it is he's doing, and what it is the recognition of those who came before him, is the recognition of who he is right now in this moment. And that teaching that he gave blew me away, because I have lived my life running like hell from who I was. And this teaching allowed me to start to embrace these notions that there is no need to run away. And where would you go? Because everything you are carrying with you wherever you go. So wherever you go, there you are. And that really helped to resolve a lot of confusing feelings of self-denial and self-hatred that I had. And I think that when I look at it more, I never had a strong connection to the lineages of my family, or I never had a reverence or a built-in connection to the people that created the pathways that put me on the path that I have been put on since birth. And this is a difficult one because this also brings in a lot of issues of judgment and a lot of issues of forgiveness, which is a really difficult thing for some people to do. Because for many of us, that direct lineage includes a lot of abuse, and it includes neglect or abandonment. And these are the issues that we struggle with to this day, that we blame for the ways that we behave in relationships. But all of the blame in the world that I could have for the things that influenced the way that I behave now does nothing to change those behaviors now. It hasn't worked. 40 years of my life, I could have been blaming things, and it would have never worked to change the behaviors. But what does begin to shift in us is when we can start to pull back just a bit and look at the lineage, and then begin to have understanding for how this story has been writing itself all of these years. And then I wake up from that dream, and I can understand why it is that I have a familiarity to these things. And I can understand why it is I have a propensity for certain things. And then I can start to work with myself on that and say, hey, this is where this comes from. Do you want to continue carrying it? It's a tradition that's been handed to you. You can continue it or not. This is your choice now. See, without having the relationship and the familiarity and the internalized knowledge of these things, you don't have a choice. You just are doing the thing without understanding why. Blame doesn't instruct, blame doesn't teach. But forgiveness allows blame to go away. And then understanding can move in. So then we can start to look at all of the stories that we carry forward. And just like Brother Phap when he learned about the tradition of honoring his ancestors. He learned that this was in honoring himself, and he could decide to carry that tradition forward. And this is important, I think. At least to me in this moment, it feels like it has a level of importance. So then I pick up a book this morning when I come in, because I'm often looking for just some little reading to share with you all. And what I will sometimes do, most times actually, is I'll take a book by a teacher that I trust, and I'll just open it and see if there's something on that page that speaks to me. And this was the page that we opened up to. This is Thich Nhat Hanh from his book, Living Buddha, Living Christ. And this little section is called Nirvana is Available Now. And I'm just going to read the first couple paragraphs about this. But this first paragraph, I think, is so indicative of this importance of the lineage and the understanding where we truly come from and who we are in this moment. Thich Nhat Hanh says, "Some waves on the ocean are high and some are low. Waves appear to be born and die, but if we look more deeply, we see that the waves, although coming and going, are also water, which is always there. Notions like high and low, birth and death can be applied to waves, but water is free of such distinctions. Enlightenment for a wave is the moment the wave realizes that it is water. At that moment, all fear of death disappears. If you practice deeply, one day you will realize that you are free from birth and death, free from many of the dangers that have been assaulting you. When you see that, you will have no trouble building a boat that can carry you across the waves of birth and death. Smiling, you will understand that you do not have to abandon this world in order to be free. You will know that nirvana, the kingdom of heaven, is available here and now." That just really, I don't know. I get a little tingly sometimes when the synchronicities align, because that last line in that paragraph, uh, you do not have to abandon this world in order to be free. So there it is. I do not have to abandon my lineage, my all of the things that have made me who I am. I do not have to abandon this body and this thing to be able to be free. And it doesn't mean, I don't think free as in gone, to be free of it. It's not important. I think it means to be free to choose, free to experience and express within it, and take from that what we need to carry forward, and give to it what we'd like to introduce into the lineage. And so then I think about the ways that my upbringing and my parents' upbringing and their parents' upbringing have influenced behaviors that I'm passing on to my children, both good and bad, as well as, the DNA that I'm passing on, and the way my children look, or the way their bodies function. This comes from my wife and I. This comes from our bodies, which have learned to adapt to the world that we live in right now. Sometimes maladaptive, but adaptive nonetheless. And I think about the importance of lineage. And in many traditions, especially in Eastern religions, but not only, the traditions of lineage are very important. Well, in fact, I know people from the West, from Native American cultures, and from Native Mexica cultures, who lineage is important to them as well. Who's your grandma is a question that comes up a lot in these contexts. And so as I woke from that dream into this dream this morning, it made me aware that I can appreciate who I am, because of where I'm from. And I can forgive the things I need to let go of so that I can release this blame that is getting in the way of my appreciation. And the act of lighting the incense to burn the smoke is to release. The act is an act of releasing the incense, the wood grain and the pulp that's releasing the smoke is releasing itself, becoming part of the ether, releasing its form. And that offering to release something, I think, is pretty beautiful. So let me know. And you can let me know in the chat right now. You can, let me know through a message, journeyhomemeditation@gmail.com, the ways in which maybe you are coming to understand what you are made from and what you will bring forth. And we don't really, I think, have a choice until we have a relationship. Because I think relationship really inevitably offers us the greatest amount of freedom. When I'm in relationship with my wife or my children, there is a level of allowance that happens within our communication and within the ways that we express to one another that we wouldn't allow with people we aren't in relationship with, you know? So relationship offers more of the ability to explore who we are. And lineage is important. Succession is important because that's the wave on the ocean, right? It's like each wave is this tiny little expression of oneness that pops out. And it creates the next wave, and it creates the next wave, and the next wave. And they crash onto the shore, and they come back in, and the act of coming back creates more waves. This is the act of one wave returning to the oneness creates another wave trying to express something individual. And it's pretty beautiful. It's pretty beautiful the way that we work. Each of these wonderful little expressions of God, So I'm going to sit for just a second and have a cup of tea. I learned how to have mindful tea also in the from the teachings of Thich Nhat Hanh. And one of the teachings that he has around mindful tea is to see the clouds in a cup of tea. And to do this, you really have to find stillness. You have to invite this level of calm and patience and reverence into your body and into your mind and into your sight. What are you willing to see? And then once you've sat with your cup of tea and you've been able to bring in stillness, on the stillness of the surface of the tea, you'll see the reflection of the sky. You'll see the clouds that pass by, but the cloud isn't in the tea, it's just passing by on the surface of the tea. And this is, in Thich Nhat Hanh's teachings, this is who we think we are. It's just passing by. But who we truly are is under that surface. So all these surface ideas of who we think we are, they're just momentary. But then in the mindful tea teaching, he teaches to, when you bring the tea to your lips, you just drink lightly and you savor the moment. And he said, in that moment, you can taste the lineage of the sun. You follow the tea, the water that came here, and the hands that help to make these pipe systems to bring us this clean water. And then you have the hands that helped to carry the tea leaves that were dried, and the hands that dried those tea leaves, and then the hands that harvested those teas, the hands that tended to that tea leaf and watered that plant and tended to the soil around it to grow the healthiest and most vibrant tea. And then you have all of the nutrients that came into the soil to feed that plant. And then you have the sun, who the plant was able to take the power of the sun, the gift that is without prejudice, without discrimination. The sun just pours upon us, and it takes that gift and it transforms it into this life. And it's that life that we're tasting in this tea. And all of that from a simple sip of tea. And that's the lineage. Before I started practicing these practices, I don't think I ever had anything take me into that level of love, respect, and appreciation. And the ability to sit just for a moment with that teaching and that cup of tea and that sip. You can sit with your lover and you can gaze into who they are, and you can appreciate everything that made them. You can sit with your enemy and you can gaze into everything that's made them. You can love and appreciate them. You can sit with strangers. You can sit with family, friends. You can sit in a room with yourself, and you can take that level of reverence for the sip of tea and understand all of the hands that made you and all of the ways that you have been able to transmute the world into nutrients to stay alive, and how you have been able to have the sun's indiscriminate gift pour down upon you to bring you this life. All from a sip of tea. And that came from my teacher. And that came from my teacher's teacher. And that probably came from my teacher's teacher's teacher. So let's consider what we're teaching with our life. This one chance we have as this teacher to come and carry forward the teachings that we've been given to those that we are charged with giving teachings to. And sometimes the teaching is just as simple as saying, "I'm sorry, I did not mean to offend you. Please help me understand how to be more kind to you." You can say that to someone on Facebook. You can say that to a stranger, or you can say that to a family member you've been feuding with for years. And then you're the teacher. But you also are the teacher when you slam doors and burn bridges. You're the teacher there too. So be mindful of our lineage. Let's take just a few moments, and maybe we can bring any understanding that you may have acquired in that thought process today into your practice today. So let's begin by bringing our awareness to our body and how we're sitting. And by shifting the posture of our body, we shift the position of ourselves in this world. So let's lengthen our spine, Let's make our chin somewhat level to the ground. You can place your feet flat to the floor or cross your legs in any number of positions. But we are here to breathe. And to best do that, we want to find a position of balance in our body that welcomes the breath. So letting the shoulders relax and bringing the shoulder blades together just slightly by turning our palms facing upwards, opening our chest and our heart, by relaxing our neck, our cheeks, our jaw. Relax your forehead and that space right between your eyes. Just let that go. Breathing in through the nose to the bottom of the belly. And release. Breathing in. And release. When you breathe in, know that you are breathing in. And as you breathe out, just know I am breathing out. Be present in your body. Listen to the places of discomfort as well as the places of total relaxation. Let your awareness just drift through the body, riding on the blood or the breath. And just know that you are alive. And if you are alive, then you are changing all of the time. You are sharing, you are giving, and you are connected all of the time. You are receiving with every breath. what a joy it is to be alive today. You can stay in this place as long as you'd like. Thanks for being here this morning. Thanks for letting me work through all of the confusion in my mind in a public way. But I appreciate hearing from you and having the conversations that might be spurred on by this little practice that I keep here, this practice that you keep here. So you message me at journeyhomemeditation@gmail.com, or reach out to me through Facebook or YouTube, wherever it is that you're finding this, you can find a way to reach me. You can also join the Journey Home Sangha on Facebook, which is a highly underutilized Facebook group. But it's there if people choose to come into deeper relationship and to connect on this level. It's there for you. All right. Thank you much. I appreciate you all. Hariom.